Okay, I just want to assemble this clutch, and I'm just thinking of making a video for myself for future reference, but if it turns out halfway decent, I'll post it. This is for this particular clutch that's on the deck here is off of a 2016 bike, but it's going to be used on a 2018, and there's a couple just little differences that I found. Definitely check it out yourself. I'm not sure if this is even going to show up, but for an 18 bike, which this is a drawing for, here is where I've found differences between the different years, between 16 and I think 20, is the amount of these Belleville springs and the washers and the order that they're in. So on the 18 bike, there's obviously 2 washers here and then the spring, and on the 16 bike that I have, there's 1 washer and 2 springs. And so if I have time, I'll explain what all that means. I think I figured that out in the race manual. But I'm just going to go through and kind of put all this together. I guess what's of most importance here that I had the most difficulty figuring out is this friction disc right here, number 12. That's pretty easy to pick out. It has a different inside diameter, but the discs on the front and back, these item 11, it just says driving clutch disc, but they have a different part number than 15, which says driving clutch disc, and they have a different part number because they're different. But it's a little bit difficult to tell the difference if you're staring at a big clutch pack. And also what I found out is if you ask somebody for a clutch pack, they're not going to automatically give you 11. They're going to give you the 4 and the 15, just the inside of the pack, and not 12, not 11, not 13, 14, and an extra 4 or 16. So I'll explain that as we go along here. This is all the stuff that confused me. My whole goal here is to build a basket that I can just change on the bike at the track, without having to mess around with all the discs and the order of everything and all that stuff we just looked at. I want to be able to just take this disc and replace it on the bike. So there is a bushing that's missing, a washer that's missing here. Other than that, there's a spacer, there's a needle bearing, and there's this clutch gear. Okay, and I am keeping those as part of the kit. When I get that bushing, I'll put it on here, and this will all get taped together, and all of this stuff will get oiled. So everything I'm going to do right now, everything's pretty dry. For the final assembly, everything is going to get dipped in oil. We don't want to obviously assemble a clutch dry. This is not a dry clutch. So let me just explain for myself and whoever else for future reference what is going on with these discs. So here's the main discs. 2, 4, 6, 7 of them. Here are the discs that are the same size and they look exactly the same, but they are different, and it's really hard to tell by looking at them, but here's how you would tell the difference. And let me see if this is going to turn out on the camera. If you look at these top 2 right here, that's black, and these are just gray. Okay, that is it. If you have really good eyeballs, the ones with the black on them have a very tiny bit bigger pads, these little pads. Just for fun, I got a mic. So 5.5 mils versus on a standard plate 5 mils. Okay, so that's what's going on with those. So these ones with the black, one of those goes on the front of the pack and one of those goes on the back of the pack. Okay, the first thing that goes in is this washer. So I'm just going to start, and then we'll talk about well, actually I can talk about the steel plates now. So these all sort of look the same, but there is that one that's different, and it's item 16 on the parts list. It doesn't say it's anything different. It just says it's a driving, what does it say? Driven clutch disc. Driven clutch disc. Well, they're all driven clutch discs, but 16, if you can see the color difference between this guy right here, it's nitride coated, right? And the rest of them have these little perf or little markings in them. So that is how you're going to tell the difference. They're all, I think I mic'd these two. I think they're 2 mil. I think they're 2 mil. Yeah. So they're all the same thickness. They all have the same teeth, but one of them, for whatever rhyme and reason, is coated with nitride. Okay, and that has a special little home. So now that I know all of that, I'm going to do this assembly. So if this is going on the bike, I'm gonna put that clutch gear on, the needle bearing, the spacer, and the washer that goes back there. Okay, then the basket goes on the bike, then this washer goes on. It just fits down in there. This is the only washer that looks like this in the clutch, except for the one that I'm missing. The one that I'm missing looks a little bit like this, that goes on the underside. Okay, I don't know if I should get into measuring things for you. For instance, washer number 2 is 25.5, which is what I'm doing now. A little bit off. And then 47 and 2.5. So we got, there's the 47 and there's the 2.5. Okay, so that guy goes in there. The first one I was talking about goes on the underneath side. Okay. So, basket goes on, washer goes in, clutch hub goes on. I'm looking for this guy, right? And I've got the little pieces in here which I can take out later. Okay, so that's just going to go in on there. Okay. Now, okay, I'm just skipping over what you would do if you were at your bike doing just a normal clutch job. This would all go on, and then you'd put the springs in and the nut, and then you'd start putting in the plates. Well, I'm trying to build a package off the bike, so I'm doing things a little bit out of order. For future reference, the nut torque is 110 foot-pounds or 150 Newton meters. That's that nut. I'll talk about those springs here in a little bit. So we're going to insert one of the first discs with the black mark on it, and when they say that, they're saying that guy. It might be hard on the camera to see it, but it's a little easier in person, and hopefully it was easier to see when they were all together. But anyway, so black guy goes in there, And I'm also kind of eyeballing this little cutout. Come on, baby. Okay. And then we have a standard metal disc. Okay, now we're gonna get different already. They're calling this a flat washer, and it is flat. And they're calling this a judder spring. They're incorrectly calling this the Belleville spring in the service manual, but that's what these guys are. Okay, this is the judder spring, and it's concave. It is not flat. So the flat one goes in first, concave out, concave towards you next. Then the one differently sized friction plate goes in, and something that I did notice, that these are even bigger pads than the black marked discs, but I'm sure that's because there's less friction area, so they're just making the pads bigger. Okay, and I'm gonna line up the cutout, and I did put the cutout in just an arbitrary space. There's nothing in the service manual that talks about these cutouts at all, and I don't think it really matters. Okay, so now we have the flat washer, the judder spring, and the larger inside diameter friction plate in. And now we're keeping the last black one to the side. Okay, the service manual says insert the disc covered with the friction material. So what it should say is insert the metal disc covered with nitride. Okay, so I am going to correct that in the service manual. Okay, nitride going in after the springs and smaller friction plate. Okay, now it's just going to be kind of a field day here until we get done stacking these babies. So these are all standard now. I've got the black one to the side. These are all the standard guys and all the standard metal discs. Okay, so I'm just gonna go. And again, I'm lining up those, and I'm gonna have to edit this thing down or something, I don't know, or maybe I just don't care. And remember, when you're actually doing this for real, this is all gonna be soaked with oil. I think we got pretty much all the complicated stuff that I want to remember done, but we'll just finish it up here. And then I can explain what's going on with the springs. Things look like they're working out correctly. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, the second friction disc with the black mark on one of the teeth, which is that one, goes last. Okay, that is the pack. Okay, the very last thing is the thrust plate. Call this the Paul clutch. Paul clutch goes in there. It does flop around, right? Clutch plate goes on. Thusly. And then it's spring, bushing, screw, spring, bushing, screw, all the way around. Torque those down. I don't think I have the torque for those. It's like 8 foot-pounds or something like that. Dang it. Do I have that? Let me see if I have it. 7.4 foot-pounds. 10 Newton meters on these screws. I don't have them here. Okay, so here's some interesting stuff going on with the springs. So on my 18 bike, there are 2 of these washers and 1 of these springs, and it goes spring with the little leg pointing down. Come on, baby. Okay, and then 2 of these washers, I only have 1 because this is a 16 clutch. Okay, so I got another washer coming. So what this does though between the different bikes is it actually is in the race manual that 2 springs and 1 washer is the most engine braking. Okay, and then if you switch 2 springs and a washer, but the washer's underneath, that's 1 stage less engine braking. And then if you go 2 washers, 1 spring underneath, that's another step down in engine braking, and that's the standard 2018 RSV4 RF, right? And then there's 1 more combination, which is 1 washer on the bottom, 1 spring, 1 washer on the top, and that is the least amount of built-in engine braking. And of course we know that you can also control your engine braking by what mode you put the bike in. Race mode, track mode, sport mode. So that's what's going on with the spring situation, and that's just worth putting on the video just to remember. So anyway, that's kind of my goals. I just want to build a clutch that I have all the parts and pieces to, so I can just change it quickly at the track. And the next thing will be the gearbox. So there it is. Once I get this all done, I'll just tape it up, put it in a bag. It's going to be all oily and nasty, and put it in the van. So anyway, we'll chalk that up to notes. Hope that helps someone. There's a few confusing things and a few things in the manual and service manual that are marked wrong, so hopefully that'll clear it up. And that's it. Thanks for watching.